Pavilion from the immediate spaces last year in Milan, and I think I gave a presentation and we started talking about architecture and solar energy, and then we started talking from I hear myself here. Sorry. About solar and space, and he invited me to do to think about the proposal for the fellowship. So I would like to share my screen and also tell a bit about the research I'm doing, but also a bit about my work and what my motivation of that is. So I'm not sure what you can see. Can you see now my full screen, or what do you see now?
I see current slide and next slide.
Oh yeah, that's I've practiced this and I don't know why this. Yeah, maybe it's fine. And now you see the whole thing, and I never know how to like take this the whole thing off, but.
If you just press on play, does that work?
Yeah, that's when you see this thing. So I don't know how this works, but okay. Well, I think it's annoying. So view. And now?
Now still the same screen.
Okay, it says something with post. You see. Sorry, what do you see?
We still see just the one slide as your complete screen.
Okay. Well, I guess we have to do it. Sorry, this is annoying. Okay, we have to do it like this. Okay, it's less nice. Okay, but maybe I'll start with basically sort of the fact that every hour we receive enough sunlight to provide the world with enough electricity for an entire year. And when I heard that fact, that we receive so much potential, so much energy, and we're basically not really using this potential, I thought there's a lot of work to do as a designer. Okay, this is annoying that this doesn't work. Yeah. Okay. I'd have to do it like this. Yeah, so okay, so that because if we think about solar energy, we think of this. Basically, it's a technology, something you just add onto a building or wherever, and we don't have like a sort of like a relation to it. It's just like something we don't think about, and I would say it's kind of badly integrated into our environment. And solar energy is around for quite a while now. This is a commercial from 1953. So this was at the time that the first solar panels were being produced. The same year that the Vanguard went into space, which was the first satellite that was running on solar panels. So if you look at sort of the numbers, you see the price since that time has decreased a lot. Solar panels have become much cheaper, and it's because China started producing them on a very large scale. And also our efficiency has increased a lot. And they're way more efficient now than they used to be, because first had an efficiency of just a couple of %. But if you look at the image of solar panels, that kind of like stay the same, and there's still this kind of solar sort of panel. So the question is like, now, what do we want to do with this? Is this how do we want our environments to look like? So I started thinking about questions like, what do we need to do now, so that in 100 years of time, we look at solar as something we are proud of? Because as things are going now, this is not going to happen. It's something, if we continue this, our lands, our environments are being filled with something that I don't think relates to its environment. And if we look at this kind of like, robots from 300 years ago, these windmills, they were completely run on the power of the wind, and it's been really integrated into the architecture, the building itself, and they still exist, and it's something we're proud of. It's part of our Dutch heritage. So what do we need to do that solar can become something like this? Or become something like, if you look at the sort of the history of technology, that it becomes so naturalized into our daily environment that we don't perceive it as a technology anymore. Something like happened with, for example, our clothing, that started as a technology, our handwriting, it's so embedded into our daily sort of habits that it becomes naturalized or invisible. That's something what Elon Musk is aiming to do with his solar tiles, that it's becomes like a sort of in the roof, you don't see it. That's because of this, it has a reflector on top, so you don't see the solar panel, and it's kind of like a smart system. And this is the way to do this. So I would like to share a bit of my work because, like I said, I'm a designer, and I would like to add something to the energy transition to my work as a designer, and how to incorporate solar into everyday objects. So I start with a collaboration I did together with Swarovski, the crystal company. And if you cut crystal in a certain way, you're able to bend and direct the light onto a certain place. So you kind of like use it as a lens to make solar more efficient, and also to use the aesthetics of crystals to kind of like have a different thing. So you could take the solar crystals into the light, and then you could place them into this docking station, and it would power these chandeliers. So it's kind of like uplifting it as a sort of, it becomes like a jewelry nearly. Another example is current table. Here the whole tabletop consists out of colored solar cells. And these solar cells are based on photosynthesis in plants, where the green chlorophyll converts light into sugars for plants. These solar panels convert light into electricity. So different colors have different efficiencies. And this table is orange because it's a very stable color for indoors. And I'm really thinking about like this, the design. It also says something about the particles that run through the table, but also it's this idea of a living object. This thing is alive as it's kind of like breathes its energy. So yeah, there's a battery integrated into the legs, so you can charge your phone or whatever from the table. So that's, the table also works for you. Another example is current window. This is kind of like a modern version of stained glass. So people here, we integrated this into a gallery in London, and people from the streets could come and charge their phone from the window ledges. So I'm basically adding extra functions to objects. So a window doesn't have to be only a window, but it's also a power station. Then to go a scale bigger, this is something I'm working on at the moment. This is for the Dutch Pavilion in Dubai, which will be held this year, as it's been a year postponed through COVID. But this basically, because World Expo is only for 6 months, and so this is going to be in the middle of the desert. So instead of kind of like building this building that is gonna like become like a ghost after 6 months, every part and every material is going to be taken back to its original state, kind of like. So this is made by sort of dam buildings and how we can make construction, so that afterwards can be used to make bridges, for example. And the solar panels I'm using for the roof are organic photovoltaic cells. So they're made of PET, and you can easily, they're super thin, easily shippable. So you have to really think about circularity, which materials are you using, and so it can be transformed into something else again. So these solar panels here are powering the pavilions, also part of the food tower that's here. So in the pavilion there will be sort of rain in this tower, rain machine. There will be mushrooms growing inside, so it becomes like a nice place where all these things are happening. It's about food, energy, and water. Then something I just launched, that's a light that works on solar panels. It's called, I just did a Kickstarter with it. So it's a solar panel light. On one side, it has, as you can see, solar panels. And then the other side, it is a light that's charging during the day. It has 3 settings. This is sunrise. It's what's for like an early morning. There's daylight and there's sunset. So it's kind of like representing the 3 sort of the different sets of the sun. Yeah, I've done a Kickstarter with this. This is here in my studio, and collaborated with a company, it's an institution called ECN TNO, and they produce like the very good efficient solar panels, and so really to see how do they work behind glass. We tested them. It was super nice to work in this big team, and to really sort of go from this idea, because mostly I work as a designer that makes prototypes and it ends up in museums, but really think of how can this create a bigger impact and that can actually live in people's houses. So that's why I've done a Kickstarter that you basically works as a platform. People can sort of submit first if they're interested in the light, and they pre-order it, and now we have to make them. So yeah, you can change the light settings through the light itself or through an app that we're developing. So it's again like thinking, that every object can be self-powering and sort of powering themselves. So this is a bit of like a general idea about the work I'm doing, and then I would like to talk also about my research here, because it's kind of like I have like a lot of different research questions. There's also maybe that in the chat also nice to talk about that afterwards with you. But decision like what decision do we need to take now so that solar energy doesn't become the kind of like asbestos of the 21st century? Because the solar panels are made of toxic materials. What happens when we don't use, now we're filling all these lands in with solar panels, with what happens after 40 years? What are we going to do with that? Yeah, and what kind of action do we need to take to go into this transitions? And what is also holding us back from doing this? Why don't we see solar panels at more places? So what is stopping us? That's like one, I would say, that's the existing industry, because gas and coal are still being mined and are being used, and they make a lot of profits with it still. So they don't change. There's still money to be made. The sun doesn't always shine. It's not the most reliable source of energy. So you always need a combination with wind, thermal, different hybrids installation, because it's not the most reliable one. And storage is also a thing, because now batteries are made out of toxic and rare materials. Luckily, there is a lot of work there that's been done, and that will change. So there's a lot of focus on that area. So we're not there yet, but we're working on that. And the last point is integration. And I think that's like a point where I can add to as a designer that, it is, like I said in the beginning, a technology that's kind of like being added onto something surface. While there's a lot of more things that is possible. There's so many technologies that we can work with. So those are the sort of thing I found. And I think this was the question that triggered Julian as well. What if we say in the future we would consider a building or object to be broken if it doesn't generate its own energy? And if we start designing differently, so we really start designing from the aspect of how it's received the most sunlight, for example, or how it gets the most energy, and it becomes part of the design. I think that would be an interesting way to looking at buildings. For example, if you look at those old Greek buildings, they really sort of positioned it in a certain way that it's like always positioned to the south. So in the summer, it would stay cool, and in the winter, it would be hot. So yeah, the research topics are materiality, circularity, the social systems, sharing can be part of the system. How do that work? How can you kind of like share your energy? What kind of systems can we use for that it already exists? Is it to blockchain, or are we gonna be part of like how will that work? Solar as something temporary or mobile. Why does it always have to be this like rigid systems that are placed, and it's like, or can it be something that it's like when it's an empty spot or plot that we roll out a sort of solar field, or we can move it around to the places where we would need it. That the urban solar energy, how to create space, because now it like kind of like takes space. It takes space, but what if it would enable space? The question of like kind of toys for boys. Why does it always have to be like these massive installations? Why can't we decentralize it and kind of like see every surface as an opportunity to harvest energy and to really think about different services? And then solar as an infrastructure. This is something, if you look at where solar panels are now in Amsterdam, you see this map. It's a grid. It's a good start. I also like this image, but it's also mapping out what is already on solar. But if you look at, for example, at the harbors here, there's a lot of space and a lot of warehouses that I think should be just the big powerhouses. And how to create space, that's a question. Can it, like I said, can it be something like temporary that you like change around and it becomes something else? How would that work? That you also haven't, it's just like also still in my mind and in my head and on paper now. It's something you just roll out, it's temporary, and how would that look? How would that work? At the moment I'm working on a book for this, so to really condense all these questions I have, talked to a lot of people, how does the network respond to this? How, as a philosopher, do you look at it? What is like kind of like the ethics even of the technologies? How do we make sure technology is completely embedded, and what are the consequences of that? So I'm kind of like having these kind of chapters of like looking at the history of solar technology, also seeing what is the photovoltaic effect. How does a technology become naturalized? And of course, the future. So what is the future of solar energy? So the book will be kind of like the past, talking about the present, where are we now, and what is the future? And that's like the most interesting part. So this is my presentation, and I would love to talk to you more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjan. I see already there's one question in the chats.
What was the name of the company? Yeah, as Paul was asking this, which company is this? Because I mentioned a couple of the company that made the solar panels, or that's called ECN TNO. That's ECN is the energy center of the Netherlands, and the TNO is the technology center of the innovation center.
Are there any other questions from people in the Zoom?
Julian, maybe? Yeah.
Hey, hello. Sorry for arriving a bit too late. Thank you for the presentation. I mean, one thing that I think would be interesting, if you could maybe elaborate a little bit on solar designer, like the title that you are calling yourself, because I think that also made me curious when we first met at the State of Art and Architecture exhibition in Milan, because somehow, yeah, I haven't heard it, and but I think it's interesting that you somehow you set the that you created the profession, and by that also created an aim, I guess, like something to work for and to fill.
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice one. I also like at a certain moment, I kind of like, it's kind of a weird moment when you say, okay, I'm going to call myself like this now. But it's, yeah, because I was basically working all the time with solar energy, and I see solar energy as a material because it's like a surface and it can be flexible, it can be whatever, but it is a surface you can design with. And it's also yeah, the aim that the things you make should generate their own energy. And how does that work, and how does it like, yeah, how do we want to be surrounded with solar energy? So that's the term solar designer that comes in. And yeah, it's nice that I met yeah, last year together with Pauline van Dongen, and she integrates solar energy into fashion. And then it was nice that we kind of like found each other there. So we started a group called the Solar Movement, and it's really with also architecture, the UN studio. They also really think of like how can you integrate solar into buildings. And we started this group that consists out of philosophers, but also people from the industry, the technology, the universities. I think how can solar be a sort of everyday part of our daily environment, and how is this transition going to look like from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and solar is a big part of that.
What's at the moment your realistic view on that? Like you already mentioned, you find it's still difficult since fossil fuels are still very current in use, and also companies make still a lot of money from them. So how, with your experience now, how do you see the future?
Well, it's like it's difficult not to be too negative about it.
Yeah.
Because yeah, if you look at the stats and stuff, and like now that's the European Union has decided that they want to reduce their carbon with 51% or something. It's like, yeah, how are we going to do that? And it's also, we have to be super quick to reach those goals, but then to do it at this pace, and it's kind of like with the tools we have now, that is kind of also feels a bit dangerous, you know. That's why like I hope solar doesn't become asbestos for the 21st century, because we need to have a plan what will happen with those solar panels afterwards. So it's good to also to look at alternatives, like for example the organic photovoltaics, and yes, they are less efficient or something, but if you look at the whole process and the whole carbon footprint, that is then obviously much better. So is it always about efficiency and the high thing, or is it more about like the longer impact? So I think we need to start looking at decisions that are not only for like, oh, to reach those targets, but in 100 years or like long term.
Thank you. If I don't know if there are any other questions, otherwise I have one last question that we could round up with. I don't see anything else yet. Yeah, Julian?
Yeah, I would have another question. Maybe it's something. It's not a question, but oh no, it is a question. The question of the relation to space, and the fact that so the research proposal was also, the idea is that to investigate what is the potential of actually making space through that energy infrastructure, because in a way you could say there's a lot, like if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of money put into energy infrastructure, right? And there's in general, there's a lot of money in infrastructure. There's very little money in culture and in social things in compared to how much money is spent on infrastructure. So because it's somehow, that is something that we, it's infrastructure. So we need it in order to sustain our lifestyle. So in a way, the idea for this research is also to see if there's any potential of using energy infrastructure not as an object that you put somewhere like a power plant that you have to put into distance of livelihoods even because it's dangerous, but that you rather on the contrary say we use the energy production in order to make space that can then be used for something else as well. And I wonder how you see the potential of that. Really, like given the case that we discussed in the beginning in this in the harbor area that is being transformed and all the institutes that were and are involved. How feasible is it that we will use money allocated to energy infrastructure? I'm so sorry, my daughter is playing here. I can't. I hope it's not too noisy. Yeah. So I don't know how feasible is it? How far are we away from doing that? From kind of using that money to do other, like to create spaces for social spaces, cultural spaces, and so on.
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's like now there's so many like regulations still in like for the city center, for example. So it's things are so stuck as well in that way. So like the monuments, sort of a lot of buildings in Amsterdam here are listed, for example, and then it's all about regulation. So okay, and then I thought, what if like sort of the distribution centers can become like the batteries of the city, because they kind of like bring all the goods and stuff, but also they can bring the power because they have like this big roof. It's a lot of surface they have. But then that's again like the regulation. So they're built for temporarily, and then the structures are so they don't allow to have solar panels in. So it's all the time like, okay, that's like too big and not possible. So that's why we have to think about alternative systems of like, what if, can we make solar more thin and temporary, for example, and look at alternatives of like, okay, printing it, having it on the facades and stuff, and in public spaces, like we were discussing about having the sort of the outside school that you could like kind of like create a classroom on an open space, and then you have shelter as well as energy that you need on that location. So yeah.
Thank you. So I have also one last question. I'm just really wondering, I guess solar design, it seems something very specific that you really have to get into and research a lot about and know a lot about, and you also need collaborators. You cannot do it by yourself. So I'm really wondering also, just as a background, how you got into it, and if students, for example, are interested in solar design for their own practice, how you would advise them to how to start or where to start.
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because it is kind of like this inaccessible. If you think about the standard solution, it is accessible by big things. But when I was a student, I got a lot of samples and stuff from companies, and that's like 10 years ago. But like I really started with like soldering all these things together, making my own solar panels from blueberry juice, because that was like the basis for these dye-sensitized solar panels. So really, the companies, they were also kind of like open to to sort of give you stuff, and so you could work and play with it. And for example, if you build boats and some it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to be so big and rigid. But yeah, the solar panels be used on boats, for example. But it's hard to change the material itself. That's true. So I think in the 10 years, a lot of things have changed now. Like I really like this thing that you can print on the solar panels with kind of like transparent ink. So the sunlight goes through, but you still see the ink. So you can basically have every pattern or every color you would like, and it's also generating energy. So maybe it's more about the collaboration with a company like that. You can do the artwork for that.
Exactly, yeah. All right, thank you. If there are no other questions, I'm just checking the chats for the second, and also the. No, I don't think there are any other questions. Then
You was having a question.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Sorry, I have a question. Because before I've seen like the like traditional like this kind of solar panel has they always like this kind of blue and big like panel, and they always have they need to like first like have some battery storage, and you first get the solar the energy into this kind of storage, and then to get, there's another thing I think to give this kind of power to the like light or something. So it looks very like so many things. But when I see your like this kind of light or this kind of thing, it looks very pure and simple. And I want to know like what's the like is that you use another system of this kind of like solar energy, or like what kind of limitation limit the like this kind of traditional like solar like panel to do to make a change or something?
Yeah, because I'm like not reusing the super big systems. Actually, I'm like the energy you need for light is way less than, for example, if you want to power your house. So you also need less solar panels. So it's just the object itself can power itself, and then the battery is smaller, and the PCB and stuff that comes with it is all smaller. So you don't have to start with a big house. You can start small. So that's how I did it, I think. That's your question. That answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? If there are.
It's so sunny where you are, Eva.
Yeah, I'm on a rooftop terrace. Best place.
Yeah, that's nice.
To follow a lecture. All right. No, I don't think there are any others. So then I think we're gonna round up. Thank you so much, Marjan. It has been really a pleasure to hear about your project and about your experiences. And in October, we will also come back to all the projects from the fellowships, and we will share more about the research. So for now, I want to thank everyone for joining today. And tomorrow there's another workshop of the fellow of design department, Amy Siohu. I think there's still one spot available, so if there are any people in the Zoom right now who want to join, go get your tickets fast. And then, yeah, that's it for today. Then we'll come back soon. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.